Hello everyone, my name is Nick, you may know me as Hello Insomnia, and today I want to talk about naming conventions. If you missed the first video in this little series that I'm doing here, let me just recap. We are creating a casual series about Ubot Studio coding conventions, and essentially I'm just talking to you, giving you some advice, some guidelines on what I think the Ubot Studio coding conventions should be, because we don't really have any established ones. So I'm just taking what I've learned from other things and trying to adapt it to Ubot as best as I can. So I want to talk about naming conventions and what I'm going to be doing moving forwards, because I have traditionally named things in a different manner, but I've changed that now. And I will talk about what it is and why. And we will also go over a couple quick examples about just naming things in general, beyond the way that I'm going to name it, the format. We'll talk about actually naming things. Now, naming things is a difficult subject to talk about, and it's very hard for me to do, and I think a lot of people struggle with this issue. So I'll show you some relatively bad examples, and hopefully you get the point. But I can't teach you that, and it's something that you'll probably just have to learn over time. But as far as formatting goes, we can talk all about formatting, so let's talk about that. And what I mean by that is, how are we going to format the name of things like our variables, our lists, our tables, our commands, functions, and things like that. So the way that I'm going to do it is all summed up in this comment here. This is something I suggest you do if you don't have an established naming convention yet, or if you want to change yours to something else, or alternatively, if you plan on working with somebody. I highly suggest you guys sit down and talk about what are your naming conventions for the project going to be, and once you've established those, put them in a comment at the top of the project. That way you can always go back and take a look and see how should I be naming this list or this table or whatever. And one last thing I want to talk about actually is, keep in mind these are guidelines. All these coding conventions I talk about in this series are going to be guidelines. They're not rules. You don't have to do them. You can name your variables and other things differently than I do. But one thing I highly suggest is, above everything, if you decide to do everything totally different, that's fine. Just be consistent. That is the most important thing, especially within the same project. Be as consistent as you can be, and that's going to help you out in the long run, I think. So let's go over what I will be naming, how I will be naming things going forward. So in the case of global variables and global lists, I will be naming things in the camel case matter, which means that the first letter of the first word is going to be lowercase. The first letter of every word thereafter will be uppercase, and everything else is lowercase. Pretty simple. That's called camel case if you want to look it up if you forget. Tables are going to be named in the same manner because we have no local tables, and therefore they'll always be global, and so I'm just going to keep them the same. I think it's just easier to remember that way. Now, local variables and local lists will be named in the same fashion, except for they will have an underscore in front of them. And the reason for that is twofold. One, while you're looking through the code, I believe that this will make it easier for you to tell the difference between a local and a global variable or list. You can see that it has an underscore in front of it. There's no need to click on the advanced tab thing for every single variable and list, trying to figure out what's what. That's just too annoying. The second reason, in the debugger, the local variables, the local lists will not show a value even when there is a value present. And so that's obviously a problem. That's something that can trip people up. But if you're looking in the debugger and you do not see a value, then, and you see the underscore in front of it, you'll know that it's a local, and so you're not expecting to see anything. And so I think it'll help immensely with that problem as well. Parameters, to me, I mean, these are essentially local variables. I don't see any need to differentiate them, but if you do, that's something to consider. You may want to change the format of your parameters if you feel the need to differentiate. I personally don't, and I'd rather keep it simple where I know things with an underscore are going to be local, and therefore I won't be seeing them in the debugger, and I'll know that they're local in the code. The way that I will be naming commands and functions is in Pascal case, which just simply means the first letter of each word is capitalized. Simple as that. I'm not putting a space anymore in my commands and functions. I used to, and you can if you feel the need to, but that's one change that I've made, and so I'm sticking with this at least for now. Another thing is I used to put underscores inside of my variables and list tables, things like that. And so I've changed that as well. But again, this is all about how you want to do things. This is just a guideline that I'm going to be following. You don't have to follow the same guidelines, but I highly suggest that you do try and differentiate between global and local. I think that's probably the most important takeaway here, besides, of course, being consistent. All right, why do I have the Stack Overflow article sitting here? Well, there's this great article called How to Avoid Calling Everything a Whatever Manager. And you can Google that, and I will put a link below somewhere as well, linking to this. And this just has a great curated list of different words that you can append to a name you already have to make it a little bit more descriptive and a little bit better. For example, if you're reading a file, you may want to be calling your command or your function like file reader or even file writer, or perhaps under certain circumstances, like a more generalized file handler, for example. If you have a database like command or function that's doing maybe more than one thing, you may want to call it database controller, for example. It's all situational, and again, naming it's a very hard topic to discuss. I can't really teach you that in one video. I find it super difficult. I know a lot of other people do as well. So let's just go over a quick example of something not to do, and I'm just going to show you a real basic example here. But this is something I've done in the past, and so it's something that I need to be aware of, and that I think other people need to be aware of. You may have a large program, and somewhere in the program there is this set Facebook to Facebook function thing, and you come upon this. Maybe you haven't worked with this code in like a year, or maybe it's somebody else's code. You come upon this, and what does it do? I don't know. Maybe it logs into Facebook. Maybe it gets the homepage of Facebook to get some tokens, or like something that it wants to make a post request after. It could do anything. So this would be a example of a bad name. Perhaps this gets the Facebook share count. And so let's say that that's the case. A better way to name this could be Facebook share count. And perhaps your function would be named like get Facebook share account, or maybe just Facebook share account. That might be considered on the longer side of naming things, but I think that the fact that you can read it and just know what it does instantly is worth a lot. Because if you come upon the same code, but it says Facebook share account and it calls to get Facebook share account, instead of just Facebook, you know what that does. You don't have to go and investigate and read the code and then be like, oh, okay, that's what it does. You know instantly what that function's going to do. And that can save you a lot of time, because if it's just named Facebook and pretend this is named Facebook, if it is named this way and you do come upon it, what do? You have to go into the function and you have to look at every single thing that it does. And that takes a lot of time. You have to understand, okay, I see that it's making this call. What's the URL? You got to expand it, look at the GET request, and, look at all the different things. And, I just wasted 2 minutes of my time trying to figure out what this does, or possibly longer, when all you really needed to do was come up with a slightly better name. So naming is a really important topic, but also it's very difficult to teach people how to name things. I still struggle with it. But hopefully this list will be a good starting point, and hopefully you can come up with your own naming conventions for the format of how to name things like variables, lists, and so on. And if you can't, feel free to copy these. I encourage it, actually. And above all else, be consistent.